Hi, everyone. What a pleasure to be with you today. My name's Davina Rooney. I'm the CEO of the Green Building Council of Australia, and I'm really engaged to talk to you about strategy, where we are and how we're striving forward. And contextually, I think it's really helpful when we look at our enormous partnership with you in New Zealand to look at some of the things we share, how we rate, how we advocate, critically how we collaborate, and then how we educate or lean into days like the one that you're doing. So when we look at how we rate and partner with you for Green Star in Australia and New Zealand, excitingly in Australia, we're now over 3,000 certifications across a really wide range of asset classes. So the scale change that we were looking at in the early days, we're starting to see that, which is phenomenally exciting. And the other thing that you'll have heard us talk about in this market is about taking the next generation of Green Star as we dream what the future focus for the rating tool is. And so I wanted to acknowledge that we've launched the first phase of that buildings in Australia, and there's going to be an opportunity for New Zealand consultation that the New Zealand Green Building Council will be leading. But I just wanted to give you a sneak peek, since this is a strategy session, about what can we hope the future looks like. And for us, we're really talking about bringing strategy up front. When we talk about sustainable buildings, whether it's in GRESB or Dow Jones Sustainability or broader strategy leadership, we talk about responsible, healthy, resilient and positive places for people in nature where you can demonstrate your leadership. So we think it's really important that if we want to change everything in sustainability, we really need to bring everyone. And so there needs to be a different frame for the discussion. And critically, the tools will be all about how we align these to the global metrics. Everything will be tracked against the UN Sustainable Development Goals at a credit level. So you can start looking at impact reporting as much as sustainability rating systems to help you drive the strategies for the future. And critically, when we know that sustainability reporting has always been too hard, bringing forward a new digital future that puts information at your fingertips is really going to be at the heart of that. So we're launching Green Star Buildings Online. We did the first stage partnership launch with Microsoft at the end of last year, and progressively through 2021, we're going to be rolling out that phased approach, which gives you the opportunity, when you lean into the new programs, you're looking at a new digitized future. And another critical part is that alignment needs to be far more straightforward. It's been complex in the carbon space. So we've partnered with ILFI to seek to have alignment for global net zero standards and align them into rating tools. So the complexity that you deal with every day can actually be simplified. Now, I'm really excited that in this session, we're bringing together context from Australia and New Zealand for how we actually advocate. How do we partner with government to drive more change? And I think it's really important in this context to note the context of COVID. So one of the responses that we've been launching is building to bounce back. How do we drive a greener, stronger, better future out of the twin shocks from the economic and the health crisis from COVID-19? So we've had enormous engagement of leaning into how we create that positive, resilient net zero future and creating that as an economic driver for how we build back better in this space. And so this is one of the documents that's available on our website. I'm really excited in question time for us all to unpack how we bring forward those actions. I know the New Zealand Property Council's talking about their advocacy session, and we should look at how we bring these all together. But part of this is demonstrating how we actually lead, drive, and deliver operational performance. So we're currently partnering with the Australian government to look at how we align Green Star and Neighbours Energy, how we prove that we're closing the performance gap. So excitingly, the early stage research in this area shows that approximately 89% of buildings are within 5% of their designed energy targets, which is a huge enhancement from what we've seen in the future, which is all about practitioners and leaders like yourself getting better at taking buildings in design and development and delivering them in operation. it's really critical for us to step back and look about how we collaborate, because days like today are critical about how we work together and seek to drive and generate a common future. So when we look at the critical things that the world needs us to focus on, climate action, resource and circularity, or circular economy, these are absolutely fundamental, because the frequently quoted buildings being 40% of the global carbon emissions is well understood. But even as importantly is buildings are responsible for 50% of the materials global demand. If we're going to create and deliver the global goals that we wish to drive in a resource constrained world, we really need to be looking at how we're bringing those together. So we're currently out for consultation and very happy to partner with you on a circular economy discussion paper, because we need to be doing early thoughts for how we can actually use this and engage and drive leadership across our markets, and be doing the work with you in industry so we can take your thought leadership and actually use that to drive the agenda. Because a lot of what we talk about from the advocacy context is how do we take your advocacy in action and position that as leadership, which makes space for government to actually regulate, and whether it be, the criticality of moving towards mandatory disclosure with neighbours, bringing that across a series of spectrums, we actually need to get that tension of using the voluntary market to use to rise all the boats and drive that change. And so for us in our market, we've partnered really closely with our property council to launch shared advocacy on building efficiency for jobs and growth, and also Every Building Counts, which is our blueprint for net zero in our economy through a buildings-led pathway. And so I love that this session, we're talking about collaborating and driving that future together, because we really need the Green Building Council, the Property Council driving that agenda, because it actually leads to so much greater government engagement. And what we need to do is look at what the voluntary rating systems we can do, like Green Star, which is the carrot, how we work with advocacy, which we often talk about being the stick, and the other part about how we run global leadership programs, which I call the tambourine. So a lot of our response for driving change is the carrot, the stick, and the tambourine. The tambourine in this case is how do we have net zero global carbon leadership programs where people commit to net zero by 2030 across their portfolio. And this is a global frame that involves, cities from New York, regions like California, all of Scotland. And then we actually bring forward global property leaders like many of yourselves and some of the partners listed on the slide. So we actually create a clear driver for net zero 2030 across our portfolios. And importantly, we do our carbon positive roadmaps. This is something that the New Zealand Green Building Council has their own really detailed equivalent of for how you bring your market to net zero, and how we actually then bring that one level down to these leading rating tools about how we have climate positive buildings used as a way of driving our net zero ambitions, and critically step into discussions like how do we go from buildings to precincts, because that's where some of the critical stage linking needs to be when we think about how to drive scale change. So I am thrilled to be with you while we're launching Green Star in Focus, the case for sustainable social infrastructure, which is really pulling these concepts together for how do we go from buildings to industry to community to scale change. And the real answer in that is in partnership with government and leaders like yourself. So this is a really important document because it sets a blueprint for how we can take and scale some of those actions and bring them across a broader sector. Well, it's a real privilege to bring together this discussion with the New Zealand Property Council, the Green Building Council of New Zealand, our long-term partners. I'm sad that I can't be with you in person today to take the discussion on, but we're such great collaborators that will continue this discussion through 2021 and into the future as we bring this leadership to life. Thank you.